Teachers of Reddit, what was an inappropriate comment or behavior you had to discipline the student for, yet you secretly thought was hilarious? Story 1. 9th grade student did a report on whaling. The rubric required images on every slide, and to get their points, students need to explain their image. Thinking that I wouldn't notice, he decided to use images of sperm whale penises. A new photo on every slide of a large pink whale dicks reaching the ocean waves from all angles. I asked him to explain his images. He said, well, that's where you get the sperm. I'm sorry. With a very straight face, I asked him to come in at lunch. With grave seriousness, I explained that now that he had exposed 30 plus kids to whale penises, we would need to let his parents know. So he called his mom, and voice cracking, he said, Mom, I put a whale penis on my slide. I can't. And started to cry. His mom talked to him about making good choices and how this might affect how others perceive him, but later when his mom chaperoned a field trip, we laughed and laughed. She made him tell his dad later that night, and once they were alone, his parents laughed until they cried. I shared the presentation with my boss, and we thought it was so funny. How brave, how stupid. This is my most famous story in my group of friends, and I love going to tell it at gatherings. And here's the comment. God, I hope this is a story that Dad tells at this kid's wedding. Think bigger. Dad puts the whale penis picture in the slideshow shown at the wedding. Hilarious. Story 2. I teach kindergarten. One of my sweetest little girls coming inside from recess smiles and says, man, it's fucking cold outside. I asked her to repeat herself, and sure enough, I heard her correctly. Hard not to laugh. Right? Oh man, these kids, man. Story 3. A friend of my parents was acting in a university play as Poseidon, who was evil and had various dastardly monologues throughout detailing his nefarious mind. Anyway, a group of school kids were sat front row in the audience, about 9 years old. In the middle of a particularly intense and malicious speech, one of them stood up and shouted, "Fuck off, Poseidon, you're a wanker." Okay, I'm sorry. Commenter. I love that. Obviously, as a performer, it's distracting, but there's part of you that's delighted they're that into it, right? Story 4. I was tutoring a kid definitely on the autistic spectrum after school. He asked to go to the bathroom. After 15 minutes, I knocked on the door. He opened the door and said, "Oh, sorry, I was just masturbating," incredibly nonchalantly. Caught off guard, I just replied, "Wash your hands, please." I once had an older girl that was on the spectrum. One of her goals was to learn not to overshare. Bathroom and bedroom activities were some of her more memorable topics of discussion. Story 5. Elementary PE class was getting lined up to leave the gym. Biggest kid in my class bent over and of course had half of his butt crack pop up the back of his pants. The smallest kid in class with his high-pitched voice proceeded to yell, "Release the Kraken!" I was getting ready to get him when the big kid started to lose his mind laughing. Once he started, the rest of the class and myself started. Big kid was an awesome young man, said he thought it was hilarious. I teach preschool, 2.5 to 3-year-olds. We have a student with a speech delay. He talks, but it's not terribly clear. Except during an incident last week, a little girl was being mean to him. He said, "Sally is being a bitch." We paused. Coworker, oh, a witch. You called her a witch, right? Like from Halloween. Kid, no, she's a bitch. No, she's a bitch, not witch. Sally is a bitch. Very hard to correct him and tell mom about it with a straight face. To be fair, he wasn't wrong. She was kind of being a bitch to him at that time. Okay, story 6 comment. Did anyone tell Sally to stop being a bitch? Real questions. Seriously, I mean, it's fair if they want to correct the kid's language and say that bitch is not acceptable, but if Sally's behavior is out of line, give him a different word to use and tell Sally to stop being a bitch, right? Yeah, Sally, quit being a bitch. Story 7. One year I had a very busy class and spent a lot of time dealing with behaviors. One of my centers was tools and nails and hammers, and the kids loved screwing and hammering nails. Lots of safety talks, never had an injury. 3 of my busy boys began building forts under a table during playtime and were suspiciously quiet. However, I took the gift and used that time to support other kids I hadn't had a chance to in a while. One day, I lifted up their blanket fort flap to check on them. The 3 turned to me, frozen like a deer in headlights, with 2 tools in their hands. They had spent over a week digging a hole in the wall to freedom. Oh my gosh, my mom and dad would have killed me. Really? Asked them what their plan was when they got to the other side. There was an outside door 5 steps away, and they looked confused like they hadn't thought that far. I never thought I'd have a Shawshank breakout situation in my class. My admin and me had to keep turning our heads to laugh while we talked to the boys about their behavior. One mom considered buying her son drywall for an Easter cake. Mom's got a sense of humor, I see. Story 8. One student crawled under a desk and bit on another student's toe. They are over 10 years old. Yuck. Story 9. Male teacher here, teaching sex ed, going over methods of protection. I was talking about condoms, and this guy said, "Hey, mister," the user's name, "you know that barcode at the base of every condom?" I said, "Don't think I've never noticed that." He replied, "Oh, I guess you ain't gotta roll yours down that far, huh?" I laughed probably harder than I should have. Good on you for laughing, because some people would have been like, "Detention!" Story 10. I handed a detention to one of my 9th grade students, and he tried begging his way out of it. He eventually said, "Who do I have to kill or sleep with to get out of this?" He was not aware that the administrator in charge of discipline had quietly entered the room immediately prior to this. That was the hilarious part. I later related this event to the middle school football coach without naming the student. He replied, "That sounds like something actual name of student would do." Sometimes you just have those kids and the other teachers, you ain't even gotta say it. You just say what happened and they know. They're like, yeah, I bet you that was little Roderick over there just being a little bugger. Story 11. Kid printed 1,000 copies of Danny DeVito photoshopped into a chip and labeled Danny Dorito and taped copies of it everywhere. Commenter, I see nothing at all wrong with this. I bet you freaking don't, bro. Story 12. South Indian immigrant kid, strong accent. Kids were riffing yo mama jokes. Kid hems and haws and gets everyone's attention that drops. I too would make fun of your mother, accepting that cows are sacred in my culture. That was savage. Story 14. Had something similar happen to me, but as the student. The teacher was the most friendly, harmless looking fellow you could imagine. Not what you'd call attractive. I see a photo of a super hot blonde MILF on his desk and ask, "Hey, Mr. Professor, is that your wife?" "Yes." "Goddamn, nice job, dude." "You bet." That guy was a legend. Probably had a giant dong. Why are we talking about your teacher's dong? Okay. Story 15. I am white. My first year of teaching, I had a middle school student who said, and I quote, "You look like Janet Jackson if she were white and had a flat booty." I don't even know what that means, but to this day, it is still my contact info on my best friend's phone. Commenter, I believe that means Michael Jackson in drag. Story 16. One of my preschoolers was looking through a book of different modes of transportation, and there were some monster trucks on one page. I guess he thought he was saying the trucks looked cool when he exclaimed, "These trucks are fucking." Somehow I managed to turn my urge to laugh into a serious teacher face. I don't know how you did it, bro, but good on you, because I wouldn't have been able to do it. Story 17. I had a limited number of pencils to give out, so I grabbed a handful of colored pencils and told the kids they could use them if they needed to. The one black student looked at me and said, "Oh sure," giving me the colored pencil again. We both burst out laughing. Pro tips, kids, if your teacher laughs, then you're going to get away with it. Story 18. I was teaching 7th grade science, and a student calls me over to show me that someone had scribbled a square about 2 inches long on the lab table. I told her to just erase it. No big deal. As she is erasing it, it reveals a penis carved into the lab table. She looks up at me terrified, and I just told her to scribble back over it with a straight face. I was laughing so hard inside. Oh, I can't blame you. Okay, guys, if you thought that video was funny, come back for our next one. Thank you for hanging out with me here at Aqua Chick Cupcake Force. I'm Dee, and I will see you soon. Bye!